So over the last few days, I've been asked by people over on LinkedIn how to get started with running your own local LLM. So a lot of people are using ChatGPT and Claude Code, etc., and they're all using cloud-based models, and it's great. But what if you want to do stuff that's local? Look at files that you don't want to send off anywhere, or help you even with your pen testing and bug bounty. So I've decided to put together a very, very simple get started as quick as you can type guide. So let's go over to the desktop and then we'll see what we need. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is LM Studio. This is a nice, super simple GUI interface to using your own LLM. So go here, lmstudio.ai, and download the relevant version for your hardware. Once you've done that, you will see something like this. Now, this is running on my Mac, and it's a M4 Mac Studio Pro with 90 something gig of RAM, so plenty of RAM for this. When you start out, you'll get this. This is the chat window. This is where you can just talk with your LLM however you want to, like you would with ChatGPT. So first of all, we need to get a model loaded right now. How do we do that? We go down to here where we can discover models. Now pick the one that will fit into your VRAM. Now with a Mac, that means you get the unified memory, so it can hold very, very big models over here. But choose the one and the quantization level. Look up videos on quantization, figure out what that means, and pick the model that you want to run and the size that you can fit in. So here we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Now, please do make sure that you get a legitimate one, because there are loads of people training their own versions, but just start with something simple, right? So here we have Qwen 3.6. This is a very good model, 35B if you've got the space for that. You just download it. And then once you've got models downloaded, you can see what models you've got under here. Here, I've only got 3 just downloaded. We'll start off with this one. This is a ternary model. This is 2-bit quantization, and that is incredibly small and incredibly fast. This is one of the best models, I think, out there at the moment. And then we also have a 35 billion model that we'll be using later. So let's get started. So we'll start with this ternary model. We'll load that. We'll see that's loading up now. It takes a little while to load everything into memory, but once it's there, it'll be incredibly quick. So let's think about asking it some questions. Can you make me a checklist for a pen test against a PHP web application? There we go, something like that. Right. And as you can see, this is running entirely locally, and it's spewing out text quicker than I can read it. And as you can see, we're getting very, very detailed stuff. Now, nothing is going out to the internet. Nothing here is going outside of our machine. So this is all local within that 2-bit model. So you are very, very likely to be able to run this. Maybe not at this speed, but you're likely to be able to get this model up and running. So what if you wanted something a little bit more accurate, maybe not quite as quick? So we'll start a new one, and we can move over, and within LM Studio you can actually have more than one model loaded, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're going to load the Qwen model now. This is 35 billion, very much bigger than the ternary model, and we'll ask it the same thing. Make me a checklist for a PHP web application test. Okay, so now it's loaded. We'll ask that. Now this is a thinking model. You can turn off thinking by clicking this. Thinking does make it a little bit quicker, but not always necessarily better. So keep it on if you can, if you don't mind the wait. So as we go through this, it's going to figure out what it needs to tell us. And hopefully any second now, there we go. Again, it's very quick. It's quicker than I can read it. And this is way more detailed. So you can see the difference between like the speed and the quality and detail that you're going to get out of here. So this is a very comprehensive list it's given us. And again, this is running locally on my Mac. Nothing is touching the internet yet. So we've got that. So this is one way of, working with your LLM, but most people want to do a little bit more than that. So the next phase that you can do, the next thing you can do is switch on developer mode. Now, if you turn on developer mode, you get to be able to run a local server, right? And we've set this up, it's running, and it's just this URL. That's all you need. So when you start to look at different agents, etc., you can start pointing it here rather than to the cloud LLM, right? So what does that look like? So over here, if you go to pi.dev, this is one of the best agent harnesses I think you can find. It is incredibly powerful, but it also comes with massive responsibility because this is a no holds bars. Like this doesn't ask you for permission every 2 minutes for everything you're doing. So be warned, it can really, really ruin things if you don't know what you're doing. So grab this, install it into your local system. I've got it over here. And if we look at, I've just chucked some files in here, right? So if we look at what files are in here, there's a tool that I wrote and a couple of like dumps of data from other bug bounty tests that I've been running, right? So first of all, we run pi by just hitting pi. That's it. That's all you have to do. And it tells us it's got a couple of skills installed already. Don't worry about skills. You can go and learn about those from another video. So tell me about the files in this directory, right? So it works within that directory that you opened it in. So it's going to go off. Now, what you'll see is because I've set this up to hit this URL, you can see it here in the background, processing the prompt, writing what it's doing. So, and you can see it's using this Quen 3.6 35 billion model. And here we go. So now it's generating tokens. You can see it in the background, like just generating stuff. So that's how it works together. So Pi is talking to this server on here and using this model. So this is on my Mac. This is on a VM also on my Mac, but it could be anywhere on my network. So as you can see, it's told us a little bit about all of these files, right? So, but now we can ask it really interesting things. So find me all the URLs that are either development or API based, right? So rather than like writing greps for doing this ourselves or whatever, we can go off and find stuff for us. Now, again, this is the slow, higher quality model that it's using. So you just have to be a little bit patient with it. But again, this is running all locally and it's going to figure out what we need to do, what we need to read, what it needs to look at. It can take some time, but once you start using it, it becomes incredibly powerful. You can see in the background here it's hitting 100% as it's figured out what it needs to write next. So it's checking the Fox outloads. There we go. So let me just make this a little bit smaller for you, so we get a little bit more detail in there if we can. Zoom out that bit. There we go. All right, so it's found one endpoint, one dev environment, and one stage, right? Oh, well, this is cool, right? So why don't we say, why don't you run the header check tool against those URLs? There we go. So rather than asking us for permission to run stuff, it goes, okay, I'll just look in here, find this header check tool that you were talking about, and then run it, because it doesn't need that permission. It already runs with full permissions. So like I say, it is incredibly dangerous if you do not know what you're doing. But this, I believe, is the fastest and easiest way to get something like this running on your local machine without any payments to anyone. No one's making money out of this. I'm certainly not for this video anyway. Oh, well, that's good. Didn't really catch anything. Well, okay. Well, we can ask it to do other stuff. Whatever we need to, really. Find me some interesting URLs in those files to test. Right. So this is really how it works for me. Is I can ask it about files within there. I can ask it to write me new tools. I can use it how most people think you should be using AI. Now, again, this is the very simple version of how to get all this running. Obviously, there are other methods of doing this. There's faster systems rather than LM Studio. But I think if you really want to just get started on this, download LM Studio, download Pi, and just start playing with things. So now we've got a couple more interesting URLs. So run the header check tool against those URLs. Actually, no, against the loser URL. Right, because we just want to make this fairly quick right now. So it's going to go off and find that tool and run that against that URL. So this is how you sort of interact with it. But the great thing is if this comes back with something, because we can have multiple models loaded within LM Studio, this one, obviously using Quen, is sitting there doing some stuff for us right now. We can actually have multiple loaded. So if we go back here and we load up ternary at the same time, what do we got here? Version disclosure. So let's copy that, and then we can actually ask ternary whilst that's working on other stuff. How abilities with let's see if that comes up with anything. So now you have like a chat assistant that you can ask about things the Pi is finding, all on the same machine, all at the same time. So you can now work between them, and that means you're kind of like you're working with someone who knows what they're doing. So you can ask it for information, you can ask it for details on how to attack things, etc. This is great. So I think this is the best, fastest way to get started with something like this. So that's really it. All you have to do is get LM Studio and a Pi agent on a Kali box, and you can start doing really interesting things very quickly. It doesn't take long to get that all sorted out. The hardest part is installing Pi agent and then getting it running. Actually, I'll go back to the desktop right now and I'll show you what that looks like. So I realized one thing I didn't show you was the configuration of Pi in order to get it connected to the LM Studio. So what I can do is your configuration for connecting to the LM Studio machine. Because it's sort of somewhat self-aware, we can ask it to talk about its own configuration. So now it's going to go off and it's going to find its configuration because I can't remember where it is. And rather than doing a little find for it, why not ask it to do it for us? This is a much easier way of working with computer files, etc. Let's just check that it is running. We can go back here. Yeah, you can see it's processing that prompt now. And here you can see that both models are loaded in memory at the same time. This is probably the slowest way to do it because I could have just found the configuration file, but it doesn't matter. It's running really slowly now. It's obviously a very, very complicated prompt. There we go. So now it's figuring out where that configuration setting is, and here we go. I was hoping it would actually show us the the actual file, so that you can sort of see what that looks like. There we go. So this is all you need to do within your settings, is go to your .py agent models.json, right, and then just copy this. Now, you may not know this, but in YouTube, you can just pause the video and you should be able to copy and paste this text directly from the video. Obviously, you need to change the URL here, which is the same that we have here. So you just have to change that, and then you put in your model details here. It's not automated, unfortunately. But once you've got one set up, you can actually ask it to add in other ones and sort of do that more on its own. Pi is very good at changing itself and configuring itself. So that's all you need in order to get it connected to your LM Studio. So I hope that was worthwhile watching for you. I think that is the simplest method of getting something like this running locally, is LM Studio and then Pi Agent on a Kali machine. You will find that incredibly useful. It's a great starting spot. You can also go and ask Pi, or LM Studio, teach me about this thing, and it will tell you some incredible things that you can start as a starting point for getting your local systems running.